Long-range models have called for major development in the Gulf, and we need to pay attention. What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. All right, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have some news that we need to talk to you about. We have some models that we want to go over, as well as talk more about conditions to go, okay, how realistic is this potential area of development? And just in general, what is the temperature check like across much of the Atlantic? So we're going to be talking a lot of stuff today. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into it in just a second. But before we do that, we are closing in on 15,000 subscribers. Feel free to hit the subscribe button and hit the like video on this video for you guys right here. Let's go ahead and get to 15,000 subs by the end of the month. I'm sure we can definitely do it. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. So this is what we got for you guys right here. We're starting off with our NHC area of interest in the EPAC. That has increased to an 80% chance of formation over here. We're going to read this out very quickly, and then we'll go ahead and get right into the main meat of the video. But with that being said, here is our situation that we got. A low-pressure system is likely to form this weekend or early next week over the central portion of the eastern Pacific Basin. Environmental conditions are forecast to be conducive for gradual development, and a tropical depression is likely to form by the early to middle part of next week as the system moves westward to west-northwestward at 10 to 15 miles per hour. 80% chance of formation in the next 7 days. If you see a 0.80 like that from the NHC, that tells you that in terms of the long-term threat, they are very confident in tropical development happening. I think I've seen a 0.90 before in one instance, but man, if you see a 0.80 like this, where it may not develop in the next couple of days, but it will in the next 7, this is an indicator of how confident the NHC is, and this is going to be important for what we might be seeing for the hurricane season down the line. But we're going to go ahead and talk about this whole situation that we got right here. So last night, Logan Rounds, also known as Tropical Surge, sent me some things to take a look at. This is the Google DeepMind FNV3 model that we have for you guys right here. Now, the Google DeepMind is kind of their AI model in terms of tropical development, and even though it's still a little bit in its infancy, it has been very consistent and it has been very accurate at recording and calling for tropical cyclones in 2025, even in a little bit in 2024, but 2025 is when it really took shape right here, and the NHC has mentioned the Google DeepMind on numerous occasions in their discussions as well. So we're going to go ahead and talk about what's going on with this situation. So the Google DeepMind is forecasting for some sort of tropical development to occur in the northern half of the Gulf region off the coast of off the Gulf Coast over here, and you can see that it is really excited about the signal over here. Now, I do want to stress very quickly, this is over 300 hours out. This is almost 2 weeks out from this current point where all this stuff starts, and I believe from when this starts to ramp up, it's about 10-ish days out or so, we still have a long way to go before we see any tropical development over there. That said, given the kind of accuracy the DeepMind has had in the past, it's definitely something to take notice, especially with how strong this signal is. There's not just the fact that you're seeing a lot of signals in general, you're also noticing some power signals in here as well. Now, I'm not necessarily going to sit here and say we're looking at like a very big storm out of this. It's still way too early to indicate anything of that scale just yet. But what I am saying is this is a very strong signal, and the fact that we're seeing such a strong signal 10 days out is kind of concerning to me, and we'll go ahead and show you weather nerds to kind of illustrate this further. So here is weather nerds for you guys right here. We're going to go ahead and go to the Google DeepMind for you guys right here. It's definitely showing in this region right here. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go to 9 days out, and then we're going to go ahead and zoom in and go, okay, how exactly is this going to pan out, and how realistic is this right here? So let's go ahead and take a quick gander. This is 7 days out. And as you can see for what I've been noticing right here, it's definitely an interesting situation pulling forward. You have some ensembles picking up over here off the southwestern Atlantic at this current point, about 6 days out. And then as we get to 7 days out over here, you're definitely noticing some more of that consolidation, kind of having it move to the west, moving into the Gulf potentially, which I do find kind of interesting compared to what I've seen previously. Before, when I was first looking at this, I was going, okay, is this going from the Gulf out to the Atlantic? I was not expecting to see a signal like this happening going inland right here. So this is definitely something we're going to want to pay attention to. And what we are seeing right here is we're definitely seeing this move from pretty much from east to west right here, moving through Florida. This is for July 3rd. And then moving into the Gulf and potentially organizing and developing from there. Here is what we got 9 days out. Definitely seeing an increased signal over here on Weather Nerds as well. It's not nearly as sophisticated as what we've seen like with the image I was showing you previously, where there was a lot of signals with it. But ultimately, you are seeing an increase going on right here. The curious thing I am noticing is this is actually moving from west to east at a kind of a latitude where you typically wouldn't see that. There have been exceptions, of course. I know there was that one area of interest last year around this same time frame too that moved across Florida. It didn't ultimately develop, but it did take a similar path to this. So it's definitely something we're going to want to watch out for, and definitely something we're going to want to pay attention to. And then as we get to where we're looking at, as we get to July 6th, 4th of July, looks like if this holds, if this is true, it looks like a relatively wet weekend for a lot of areas in the Deep South if this holds. But then as we get to July 6th, you start seeing the model starting to shift and move further to the east, kind of pivoting back to the north and then moving out into the east and potentially either in the Carolinas or out to sea over there as well. Let's go ahead and go to 12 days out now. Yeah, you kind of see it, a bit of a loop-de-loop factor I'm noticing. First moving to the west, then slamming right back to the east, potentially impacting the Carolinas as well. We're definitely going to want to pay attention to that. And then as we go out to 13 days out right here, let's go ahead and go zoom out to the North Atlantic once again. What you're seeing with this, ladies and gentlemen, definitely an interesting signal that we're going to want to pay attention to. And remember, the Google DeepMind definitely has that accurate forecast reading. It has a good history of accurately forecasting tropical cyclones. Am I saying that we're going to see this kind of scenario? Not yet. I want more information first before we do that, but it's definitely possible with the potential circumstances we'll have going around it. But I do want to cross-check this with the European ensembles quickly. And here is the European ensembles. Let's go ahead and go back to about 8 days out to when all this business kind of starts on the DeepMind. The European doesn't really show that much until later. Starting about 9 days out, what are we taking a look at right here? 9 days out, you're not seeing too much. Then we go ahead and go to 10 days out. You're not seeing too much. And then as we go ahead and go to 12 days out, boom, that's what we're seeing right here. And the European is definitely an interesting scenario. It's kind of it's not necessarily in agreement with the DeepMind model, but it is showing that, hey, it might be onto something, but it might be a different situation what we're seeing. So we're seeing two models going, okay, we see this, but we're looking at two possible scenarios with this. The DeepMind has the system potentially organizing and maybe developing either in the southwestern Atlantic or in the Gulf region, but instead of moving from west to east, it's moving from east to west all through Florida and into the Gulf before potentially strengthening, whereas the European wants us to move from west to east, which I do find kind of interesting. I want to wait and see over the next few days what both the European and the DeepMind end up doing, because I want to see if the European is the one that caves or if the DeepMind is the one that caves to the Euro, because the Euros are all reliable. That's the one that has the best track record over the longest period of time. The Google DeepMind is still somewhat experimental despite its decent track history. But ultimately, let's go ahead and go out to 13 days right here. Europeans definitely showing something happening either in the Gulf or in the southwestern Atlantic off the coast of the Carolinas in Georgia right here. But by and large, I'm looking at this and I'm going, hey, the DeepMind and these models are onto something. this may be something you're going to want to watch. Am I saying that we're going to see any big explosive development right now? No, I am not saying that. But what I am saying is, at least according to these ensembles, they're definitely excited about something. And right now, what I want to do is look at the conditions and go, okay, how realistic is this and what potentially needs to go right for this scenario to happen? Starting off right here, let's look at our water temperatures, ladies and gentlemen. Water temperatures have no issue with. The water temperatures across the southwestern Atlantic over here are creeping up to about 28 degrees Celsius, maybe 29 degrees Celsius, a little bit more into the Gulf Stream over here. We're going to want to keep an eye on that. And if it is a DeepMind scenario where it moves through Florida and then enters the Gulf, you're looking at over 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degree Fahrenheit water temperatures across much of the northern Gulf and in the loop current as well. So ultimately, you have extremely warm waters, and these water temperatures have been surging over the last couple of weeks. The Gulf waters have been surging. This is pretty typical for what we've seen in June already, but we're already seeing those 30 degrees Celsius. Instead of a few isolated pockets, they're in a larger area for sure, and that's only going to continue as we move through July, as we move through August as well. Things are going to continue to get interesting over here, and the Gulf is definitely cooking at this current point in time. Also watching out for the main development region. That's starting to heat up. We're definitely seeing those water temperatures surge a bit further up to the north as well, but mainly concentrated in the tropical region of the Atlantic once again. That's going to create less stability issues. It's going to be a more unstable environment this year than it was last year, and it's definitely something that, at least especially going into July, we're going to want to pay attention to. But for right now, the main focus is going to be what's going on with this business over here. And for that, we have our water temperatures. What is our ocean heat content like? And there's the answer for you guys. Here is our OHC. OHC continues to increase across the Gulf Stream and in the Gulf region over here. Gulf Stream, where this system, at least according to the DeepMind, is set to get its act together, moves over 50 to 75 OHC. 50 to 75 OHC may not seem like that much, especially compared to what we are going to be seeing later in the season, but that's actually pretty good for tropical development. That's good depth for initial tropical development and pretty quick strengthening, as a matter of fact. And then as it moves through Florida and moves into parts of the Gulf region over here, we're looking at an increase depending on where this goes. If it moves further to the south and kind of enters and taps into the loop current a little bit, you could definitely see over 100 OHC if it shifts that far south. But if it stays closer to the coast, you're looking, I'd say, about 50, that same 50 to 75 OHC areas, with the trade-off that at least the surface water temperatures are going to be much warmer over there too. So that's kind of a bit of a trade-off with these kind of tropical cyclones. You either have the cooler yet very deep water temperatures that are still going to do a lot, or you have the much hotter but shallow water temperatures that are also going to do some damage potentially as well. So it's kind of your lose-lose situation. What's a worse jack of trades right here? And that's definitely a scenario we're going to want to watch out for moving forward. But now we're going to go ahead and shift over to our potential inhibiting factors. What is the wind shear going to look like? What is the dry air aspect of this going to be like? Because those are the two main wild cards that I want to pay attention to. And for that, we're shifting over into the Atlantic right here, at least the Western Atlantic, that covers this region of the Southwestern Atlantic and the Gulf. Let's go ahead and go way out to about 5 days out first to see what we're looking at initially. Initially, you still have your up and down scenarios right here as we get to the 30th of June. But as time continues to go on in July, you're not going to see as much influence from the troughs and the ridges that are over the continental United States and Canada. And the reason for that is because as the summer progresses, those shift further and further and further up to the north, which is why you actually get severe weather in areas like the northern Great Plains, like Dakotas, Montana, Minnesota as well. In like July, that's when their peak severe weather season is, and that's when peak severe weather season is in Canada as well, because those troughs and those ridges shift so far up to the north. And because of that shift to the north, they're not going to really bring that much shear anymore across much of the Gulf region right here. mainly the whole shear inhibiting factor that we're seeing right here from this point going forward is most likely going to be a mesoscale type of situation, unless it comes from the Caribbean graveyard over here further to the south. But as we go into July right here, it remains relatively quiet. The shear actually remains pretty mixed, but yet at the same time, at least in this area, it remains relatively quiet. And then as we get to the July 3rd, when the DeepMind starts to get its act together, you do start have a shear pocket over here in this part of the southwestern Atlantic that may inhibit some initial development. But you also have no shear for right now across much of the Gulf and Florida right here. The question is it going to hold? And for the most part, at least in the next 24 hours, it does. Yes, there is more shear that inhibits development in parts of the Western Gulf over here and in parts of the Caribbean graveyard, but it stays out of the area the Google DeepMind has in action right here. Yes, there is some shear in that region, but by the time we get to 10 days out, look at this. It's pretty clear to me right here that there is limiting shear, like there's limiting shear across much of the region right here. There's not very much, with the exception of this small area that we're going to want to watch out for. You do have a bit of a tick up going on right here, and then as time continues to progress, there is some shear that does start to impact this, but by the time it does start to ramp up, this is a situation where this most likely will be out of the Gulf region right here and start to make its turn more so to the east. So ultimately, with our shear, the answer is yes, there is definitely going to be low shear over here, at least temporarily, for the system to get its act started. So that answers question number one. Question number two, what is the dry air aspect going to be like? Because yes, you have great warm water, you have good OHC, and you have a limited amount of wind shear that may or may not stop this. And based on what I've seen recently, it's not going to be as big of an inhibiting factor. But the dry air are always our biggest wild card. So the question is, Patrick, what's it going to be? Well, let's go ahead and answer that for you. Here's the dry air aspect of it. And if you look at it for right now, it's definitely not the best right here. You have a lot of dry air that you're dealing with right here across much of the Gulf and the southwestern Atlantic. But at least for the most part, this isn't like the worst dry air I have seen. This is what I like to call mixable dry air. And what is mixable dry air? I have said this a lot on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. Mixable dry air is pretty much dry air that if you get convection to fire off and you get convection to ramp up and stay sustained, that dry air can mix out relatively easily. It's a process. It takes some time to do that, but by and large, you have a situation where it's definitely workable. And as time continues to progress, it's further 24 hours out, you have more moisture across parts of the Gulf region as well. You have a moisture pocket starting to form right here. But early on, it does appear to me that the dry air aspect of it may be inhibiting it a little bit. But it's not the worst situation in the world. Relative humidities are only down to about, I'd say, 40% or so, which that is definitely doable for tropical development. Am I going to sit here and say, oh, it's not possible, oh, this dry air is terrible? I'm not saying that, but I'm also saying that this has a lot of work to go for things to go right. But if you have a situation where convection starts developing and it mixes out that dry air pretty well and it keeps producing convection and develops its own moisture pocket, then you're going to have a situation where you go, okay, this is getting its act together. As long as the dry air stays out and as long as there's low wind shear, dry air entrainment is a lot less likely to happen because a combination of stronger wind shear and even a little bit of dry air can cause that entrainment, slow down its consolidation, and in some cases, like Hurricane Estelle back in 2022, pretty much stop its tracks and stop its intensification and allow for it to start weakening. That was a very infamous example of that. I remember covering that ad nauseum, but it's kind of your jack of all trades right here, I would say. It's a good chance of maybe something happening right here, but we'll have to wait for more information. And one thing I want to say before I get more confident about this is I want to see what the dry air trends are going to look like in the next few days to make a better judgment, because a lot of this is more so a mixed bag. The shear is good, water is good, OHC is good, but the dry air is more the mixed bag of the trade. So I want to see how that progresses, and we'll continue to keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. We're closing the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. We are less than 100 subscribers away from not 80,000, but 15,000. I wish we were at 80,000. That would be pretty cool. But let's get to 15,000 subs by the end of the month. I know we can definitely do it. The first episode of the Triple P Show starts tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Weather Center Nazario is going to be on that. I am very excited to do this, and so is Ethan. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and end it. Stay safe.